On a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, it is now time to focus on Game 2. Game 1's in the rearview mirror. Adjustments need to be made. And what are the three things that the Hurricanes need to do to make sure they split at home? Well, it's to play their system, quality shots over quantity, and why depth and special teams need to come up big like they have been all playoff long.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the Hurricanes credentialed beat writer over at the Hawkers, also the co-host of the Search Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my dudes here at Locked On Hurricanes. It is a Thursday edition of the pod as we to kind of preview Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Final of your Carolina Hurricanes against the Florida Panthers, and why I think these three things need to be key for the Hurricanes to split the home of games 1 and 2 before they go on the road to Sunrise for games 3 and 4. We're going to look at how the Hurricanes need to play their system, not fall into what the Panthers want to do, that they have to control the tempo, that they need to sit like they have been all playoff long so far. The quality over the quantity of the shots. Instead of putting the pucks on Sergei Bobrovsky's body, they need to get him moving, get screens in front of the goal, and everything else they need to do to make him move and not make his night easy. And then how depth in the special teams need to come up big for the Hurricanes once again, because they can't rely on the top line to do everything. Special teams really need to get going, especially on the penalty kill, and more importantly, on the power play. But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So we are going to talk about how the fact that the Hurricanes need to play their system. And I kind of talked about this a little bit after on the Wednesday, episode following Game 1. It's the fact that the Hurricanes threw a lot of hits. They had, over a dozen, very early in the game, and, they out-hit Florida. But the thing is, the Hurricanes are a physical team, but if they start playing too physical and start more worrying about hits and trying to counteract, overcompensate what the Florida Panthers do and kind of have to play their game to stick with them, that kind of tends into some, them getting out of sync. And that's what you kind of saw in Game 1. And that's one of the big keys for the Hurricanes is for Game 2. Go back to the system that's been working for you all playoffs. You got to the Eastern Conference Final in 10 games, winning back-to-back series 4-1 because you played your way. You controlled the tempo. You didn't get extracurriculars. You didn't let your frustrations boil over. And you can just tell, back in Game 1, that was just not the case. The Hurricanes got out of sync. They, didn't play their system. They fell into what Florida wanted to do, and that's why you saw them frantic and, making passes they shouldn't, letting frustrations boil over. And it's just, that's why you saw a very bad combination of just a lot of things didn't go right their way. And it kind of mostly bit them for the most part out of the entire game. And then you hear from the players on Tuesday, they talked about it Wednesday after that, after practice, and, how to, they asked, the captain George Stahl, how can you prove going into Game 2? And, Stahl said, we've got to learn from it. Obviously, it wasn't good enough, and there are little things that we can be better. Special teams are always big. The kill hasn't let a couple in a while, and that hurt us. Power play had some good looks, but we can always get one to help us get some momentum. They played a good game. We've got to be better. We're learn from mistakes and try to find some edges so we can get a better result. And that's kind of one of the main things is the fact that those are the adjustments you need to make. Yeah, you're used to the power play doing so well, but you can't rely on the power play to do everything. You have to have that 5-on-5. And while you had more chances, the power play wasn't really that great. It was okay. I mean, you got a goal, but it was way late towards the game. And I think that's where this system that's been working all playoff long, it's that structured defense, man defense, pinching at the right time, going to that transition. Puck possession is huge. I think for the fact that the Hurricanes got so frantic, that's why they left a lot of guys open because they weren't staying structured to what they're knowing. They're just, going for bodies and trying to find guys that they need to take care of. And that's why you saw a lot of guys that were open for the Florida Panthers. I think that's kind of where the hurt the Canes in game one. And that's what they need to learn is you got here what you were doing. You were controlling the tempo. You were controlling the pace of the game. You were making those shots. You were making those offensive chances. I mean, that's how you were able to beat Jersey in 5. And yeah, they had some guys out, but you did win. And they look at Washington. A lot of people thought Washington was going to win that series, and you took care of business in 5 games because you played your game. You did not let the physicality of Washington, take control, and you didn't fall into that trap of the extracurriculars or, letting frustrations boil over. You stuck to your guns. And then game 1 against Florida, you went right into what they do best, getting into your skin and getting you out of your rhythm. And that's what it was right from the jump after the Panthers scored their 2 goals in the span of 4 minutes. And then they had, you did get one back, but by that point it's kind of okay. You're in there, but then, the third, second period, you only give them 1 goal. You're down 3-1. Okay, fine. But then it just started to unravel from there. So it's like you have to go back to playing 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey and not having to try to come back and fight for your lives and claw your way back into this one. Because George Stahl further said, I don't think our speed was quite there. I think we're a little slow to start. They do a good job of breaking pucks out and using each other. They make plays with little dinks. It's not like long rims where RD are pinching hard on them. They kind of just dink it out so they have a little space. I thought we got into our forecheck a little bit, played a couple of shifts in their end, but we've got to do more of that and double down on the things we do well. And yeah, that goes back into playing your system because, yeah, you need to win the 50-50 board battles. You need to, make the adjustments that way. Yeah, if they're dinking it in, you got to make sure that you're getting to the puck a lot quicker. And I think that's what also killed them a lot because the Hurricanes are a very good team of forechecking you to death and beating you in a lot of board battles. And Florida was like, okay, no, we're just going to, dink the puck in a little bit. We're just going to get a little floater into the thing and use our speed against you and not give you that 50-50 chance. And that's what really showed out is the fact that the Hurricanes did not capitalize a lot of board battles. And that's why Florida was able to do what they did and keep their possessions a little bit longer and frustrate the Hurricanes. So that's kind of where you're looking at that is it's one of those things where you have to, like I said, make those small adjustments and find a way to give yourself more opportunities to have, longer chances in the ozone, limit Florida in their zone. I mean, yeah, you only gave up 20 shots, but they scored 5 goals. That, like I said, that goes back to the quality over quantity that we're going to talk about in segment 2 of where they capitalize on their opportunities of just bad turnovers, bad coverage, screening goalies that, they, stuck to their system. And I've been saying it for the previews leading into the series is what system is going to blink first? Which one's going to crack? Because one is going to be a bend, don't break, and the other one's going to fall out of what they're usually doing and try to play catch up. And unfortunately, the Hurricanes blinked first. But luckily, this is a long series. This is a series where they can just go into game 2, make the adjustments they need to, win that game. Then, hey, you split at home. And then you go to Sunrise, and hopefully you split down there as well. Then you come back next Wednesday for Game 5, Series 2-2, and then it's just the best of 3 after that. But obviously, it's one game at a time. But as long as, like I said, you watch the tape from Game 1, burn it, forget it, make the adjustments, and get ready for Game 2. That's where it's really going to help. And I think the first main thing the Hurricanes need to do: play 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey. Do not fall into what the Panthers want to do. You didn't do it for everyone else. Go back to what's got you to the Eastern Conference Final in 10 games. By playing your style and playing your system, don't fall into the trap of the other team. And like I said, that goes into, the Hurricanes are a high-volume team, But yeah, quantity is great, but quality is better. And that's how Florida got 5 goals on 20 shots. So what does that mean for the Hurricanes? Well, stick around and we'll talk about why quality over quantity is very big for the Canes in Game 2 on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and obviously the NHL playoffs are well since we are in the conference final. And every night delivers highlight-worthy performances from major momentum shifts and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-breaking shot or a breakout player. There's never a better time to get on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off or puck drop and even live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways to play smart and win big. Now, new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 1, you saw what the Panthers did. They had 5 goals on 20 shots because it was the quality of shots. It was those high-danger chances. Getting the necessary room to take their shots. Getting some space, using screens, net front presence. And that's definitely what the Hurricanes need to do because, yes, we know the Hurricanes can actually, shoot the lights out in terms of putting pucks on net. They'll have 75, 80, 90 shot attempts. They might have like 35 to 40 shots on goal, probably have like 20 or 30 shots blocked. And all it's well and good, but at a certain point, it's like, the Panthers were able to capitalize on their limited opportunities. The Hurricanes only got 2 goals on 33 shots. That's a big difference going 5 for 20 instead of 2 for 33. And that's the thing that the Hurricanes need to do is the fact that they have better high danger chances. They need to get bodies in front of the net. They need to do some screens. They just need to move the puck around. And they just need to have better shots overall. Because you saw it in Game 1. A lot of them were low off the pads. A lot of them were into Bobrovsky's chest protector, right into his glove. He saw the pucks all the way from the rip. And that's the thing that the Hurricanes need to do is they got to screen his eyes. They can't give him those clear opportunities to see the puck. And you've got to have the proper shots. And you start going upper on him. On glove side, blocker side, you need to go up. Because Bobrovsky, what he did to the Hurricanes in 23 was eliminate all the low shots. Anything that was off his lower body or off his pads, he was there to take care of it. And that's where the Hurricanes probably just need to start lifting the puck more and try to get him past the body in certain areas. And I think that's where if you start getting him to go east-west in the crease instead of just setting up and seeing the puck, they need to get him moving around and having to do anything and get him mobile. If he stays still a lot, then yeah, he's not going to have any issue stopping pucks. They got to get Bobrovsky moving, and they got to give him certain different angles than just low to the chest, no bodies there. And this is what Seth Jarvis said, talking about the offense and creating chances. We're not concerned. It's going to come. Obviously, we have to find different ways to generate offense. But it's about executing, and that's something we've been preaching and working on. We know when we get the chances, they'll go in eventually. And yes, you're talking about the forecheck. They weren't suffocating very much. They weren't getting those chances, but that's what the Hurricanes need to rely on is being able to capitalize on the opportunities they had. Like I said, they had 33 shots. They know they have the opportunities. They have to cash in on them. But that's the thing too, is the fact you look at how it's going to eventually come, but you really can't wait too long for that to eventually come. It's like, Seth Jarvis talks about executing. That's where the quality comes into it because you have to have the quality of shots to make Bobrovsky move because you can't just throw pucks on the perimeter and hope that there's a rebound there when he's able to swallow the puck with it, in the chest or, able to flash the glove or make an easier pad save. And like I said, that's where you see a lot of teams that, the 2 games the Hurricanes lost, it was quality over quantity of their shots. New Jersey, did win a game. It was their quality of shots. Same thing with the Capitals when they won game 2 back in round 2 is the fact they have the quality opportunities. A lot of these teams aren't getting 30 shots a game. You're looking at like 28 or less. There's a lot of low 20s shots on goal for opponents in the playoffs against the Hurricanes, and that's good. You're limiting their chances, but if you're giving them a ton of grade A's, it's kind of counterproductive of what you're trying to do, where you're supposed to limit their chances, but you're giving them a lot of grade A's. It kind of negates itself. That's where it's a lot more quality than the high volume that we're used to with the Hurricanes. So, and there's nothing wrong with having high volume of shots, but as long as you're making the goalie work for those high quality saves, then at least you're doing something because you're timing the guy out. Because you don't just want Bobrovsky or whatever netminder to go set up, see the puck, make a save, and then you can swallow it and slowing the play down. And then you got to go to 40, 50 something, like go to a bunch of face-offs throughout the game and giving the Panthers some rest, because the Hurricanes are good at suffocating the other team. But if you're icing the puck or throwing the puck right at Bob's chest or in his protection, that's easy for him to swallow up, then you're slowing yourself down. You're not giving yourself to make the defense work. You're not pinching them in their zone. You're not hemming them in there. You're not making them work extra and tire them out. It's like throw the puck on, stop. Throw the puck on, stop. There's just not enough momentum going. And you saw that against New Jersey and Washington. The Hurricanes suffocated them all game long. Multiple offensive possessions where the Hurricanes there's games when they were double in the ozone time against Washington. In multiple games, like you saw on average, they were putting up an absolute clinic in the ozone, but that's different when you look at Florida, to where Florida has found a way to, the Hurricanes are going to shoot the puck, but it's not those high danger ones. Bob is seeing them all the way. Then you're, limiting their ozone possession to where now it relies on a face-off, and you're going to get new bodies on the ice. The Hurricanes aren't hemming their guys in. And I think that's what they need to do in this game, where you talk about quality over quantity, is having the quality of shots, but also the quality of offensive zone possessions. Because if you're just throwing pucks on net and you're not getting rebounds, or you're not extending plays longer, you're giving Florida the opportunity to get to the puck and get it out of the zone and do what they need to do. Then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot of, you're not setting up your plays. You're not giving yourself that extra offensive time, difference of where, you got guys out there for a minute and a half, almost 2 minutes playing defense, and you're just moving the puck around, do what you need to do and impose your will. And that goes back to playing your system. And I think that's one of the main things too that would help the Hurricanes going into game 2. And that's why, if you play your system, then it goes, that's where your quantity of shots start turning into the quality of shots as well. Because, you could have 33, 34, 35 shots a game, but if you're putting up 3 or 4 goals, then, hey, there you go. Now you're seeing the quantity going up as much as the quality, because now you're actually putting more pucks in the net instead of being down 5-1 and you're getting a power play goal late. You could be up 3-1 or you're up 3-2 or however the series going, you're ahead. You're not playing catch up. So I think with what they needed to Bobrovsky is do the quality of shots over the quantity. The quantity is fine. If you're shooting the pucks on that, fine, but it's just, are you putting it to where Bobrovsky is moving around? He's going, side to side in this crease, getting different angles, having to keep him mobile the whole time instead of just letting him set up and make the save. Let him set up, make the save, and seeing it all the way. What you need to do is, for the net front presence that I talk about, screen them. You saw what the Panthers did against Frederick Anderson in game 1. They screened him, didn't see a puck went in the net. Because they said good things happen when you throw the puck on the net, but you got to make sure you have bodies there to screen the goalie's eyes and pick up the rebounds. If every guy's on the perimeter and it's an easy shot for Bobrovsky, then he's just going to hold on to it, and then it's a face-off. Then if you lose the face-off, then that's it. Then your ozone possession's done. So if you want to extend your ozone time, if you want to extend your quality of shots to match your quantity, then you're going to have to build on that and make the proper shots that you need to. And I think that's what the Hurricanes need to learn from is, shooting at will is fine, but you're making the goalie work for it. Because if you're giving him easy saves, then it's going to be an easy net for him. If you need to get to Bobrovsky, you need to pick the puck up, because anything low to his pads or anything close to his body in his chest, he's going to save that. So quantity is fine, but the quality definitely needs to be there for the Hurricanes in this one if they want to split the series. Now, a big thing that's really helped them in this playoffs is their depth and their special teams, and why this needs to really come up big for them in Game 2. So stick around. We'll talk about it more here on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, like I said, to end at segment 2, you're talking about quality over quantity. You want to have the quality shots together to make the goalie work. What also needs to work for the Hurricanes that goes into the quality over the quantity, goes back into playing your system and not the other team's system, is the fact that your depth has really helped you in this playoff, and special teams has really helped you too. And that's where it's going to really have to come up big for the Carolina Hurricanes. Because as of right now, their penalty kill is now second to the Florida Panthers. Florida is at 88.1% on the penalty kill, and the Hurricanes are 87.9%. They were over 93% on the penalty kill, and they gave up 2 power play goals in Game 1. They gave up 2 in the first 2 rounds combined, and they gave up 2 in Game 1. That's not really going to get it done because Florida now has a power play of 23.8, which, is among overall of the playoffs, not just the teams that are remaining. They're 7th, while the Hurricanes do have a 27.8 power play, which is 4th, and they got theirs very late in the game on their, one of their, late opportunities, which is all in fine. But the power play definitely needs to get going though too, because they got one, but early in the game it was kind of struggling. I'll give them credit. They were having some different looks. They weren't making, the super normal stuff. They were actually trying to, do something different, give themselves opportunities. They finally cashed in, but by then it was too little too late. But at least you're trying to see some progression of throwing some different things on. So that's fine. So I'll give them credit, but it really needs to come up big, and you can't have just, 0 or 1 shots on goal. Yeah, I know the first power play, they had 4 shots on goal. Hey, there you go. You're putting the shots on, where you got to make sure those are high quality shots to make your power play going. Right now, they scored 1, and I said, at least you give me 1 every other game, then hey, at least you're giving yourself some additional advantage. The penalty kill definitely needs to be better because it was not great that night. Like I said, you give up 2 power play goals, in one game compared to just 2 over 2 rounds. And this is what William Carrier said. It's tough right off the bat chasing the game. I think they scored 2 on their first 4 shots. They're chasing the game. We had our scoring chances. They were better than us. They were there early in the game, and I just think we need to bear down on our chances trying to find a way to get a lead. And it's just, he also went on to say, it's just one of those things that just, they have the opportunities, but those early, things kill them, especially on the, on the power play and stuff like that. And, Rod Brennamore said, the power play was good. They moved it around. We got to get sharper. Obviously, we scored 1, but if there are 3 power plays, we got to find a way to score 3. The margin of error is so little against this team. When they give you a chance, you have to find a way to put it in, just like they did to us. We didn't give up much, but when we did, it was in the back of the net. And yeah, that's kind of what really killed them. And Jacob Slavin even went on to say, talking about the penalty kill, just some misassignments, some miscommunications out there. We haven't had a lot of those in the playoffs or all season. We've got to block shots too. They've got an extra guy out there, so there's going to be some time and space for them to make plays. But with the way we kill, we can hopefully take those away and keep them out of the dangerous areas. And Jacob Slavin's right. And I think that's what definitely needs to help, in Game 2, is the fact that you saw, you had Bennett get an opportunity where he was at. You saw Carver Agee almost had 4 Canes guys around him, and he was able to set up, put the puck on his backhand, and roof it over Anderson. You got to make sure you have bodies on the guys so that way they're not giving them those grade A dangerous opportunities. So Jacob Slavin's completely right. As long as they're able to do their job of shutting those guys down and putting bodies in front of the puck, because we saw them against the Capitals. They were selling out the body almost every game, and that's why they had a bunch of blocked shots, including Jacob Slavin, who had 9 in Game 5. So I think that's going to be a really big thing for the Hurricanes, is that they have to find a way to put bodies in front of the puck again, make sure they have the right assignments going so that way guys like Verhaeghe and Bennett and, Ekblad and all of them aren't going to be able to have those opportunities with time and space to do what they need to do. And you're from Rod. Yeah, you score on the power play, that's great. But at the same time, though, you got to take advantage of that. You can't just have one or two shots. You got to put pucks on net. You got to find ways to score. And like you said, the margin of error is so small, and that's why with the miscommunication that Slavin talked about, Florida had those opportunities to score goals, and that's how they did. That's how they scored 2 power play goals. And that's where the special teams really to come back and clutch. The penalty kill needs to tighten up. They need to get on their guys. They can't give them those open spaces. And if the Hurricanes are on the power play, that's going to have to be huge too, because right now you're going to need every goal that you can get against Florida. They're not going to give you a whole lot of opportunities. And the fact that you had a good number and you only got one, like I said, it's good you scored one, but you're definitely going to need it, especially with the fact that Florida's gifting you almost opportunities to do that. So you got to take advantage of that. Of course, that goes into the depth. You look at the Hurricanes, Jackson Blake scored 1 goal, and then it was Sebastian Aho scoring the other one. But, you had Svechnikov with an assist, you had Gostisbehere with an assist, and Seth Jarvis had the only multi-point night with 2 assists. That's pretty much it. And the top line were all +1s, and Jacob Slade was a +1. There was a couple evens and a few minuses. And that's the thing with the Hurricanes is their depth has been so good, and that's what's kind of helped them get to where they're at. But you can't just rely on the top line of Svechnikov, Aho, Jarvis to do everything. I know on National Stat Trick, they didn't really have they had like 9-8 in shots for and, chances for and against. They had 9 chances for themselves. They had up 8. They had the shots a little bit better. But the guys who really put in the work was Martinick, Stahl, and Carey, where it was like 17-8 in terms of their chances. And even Hall, Kotkaniemi, and Stakehoven were 17-7. So, yeah, they had the chances, but shots were okay. Wasn't the greatest. But, those guys, if those guys are going to have those opportunities to, outchance the other team that they're facing on their lines, then the capitalization needs to be there, because you can't just rely on the big 3 of the guys who, Jarvis has 12 points. Aho has 11, and, Svechnikov has 10, which is great. I mean, heck, you got, 33 points between those guys, but you can't just rely on them to carry the whole team. And that's what the Hurricanes need to do, is because, you saw that William Carey is the only guy who's played in every game who has not registered a point, which is fine because he's doing his job. But you can't rely on 3 guys to run, and that's what the Hurricanes are. They're not a team that's built on, oh, hey, top line, go out there and do your job, play 20, 25 minutes, and, put all of our points up. The Hurricanes are a team that's run by system and points by committee. So you're looking at guys like Stankhoven, Hall, Kotkaniemi. You're looking at that 4th line of Robinson. You got Roslovic up there with Hall and Stankhoven. You got Kotkaniemi down there with Robinson and Blake, and that's where those are a lot of those depth guys need to really come up huge, because Blake scored, but it was a power play goal very late in the game when you're already down 5-1. So this is where all 4 lines need to get rolling, all the D pairs need to get rolling. And it's the depth that's really going to have to come up huge for the Hurricanes in this game if they want to split the series at home before it goes back to Sunrise. So, like I said, all this ties into is essentially 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey, and that's what we're going to need to see in Game 2 on Thursday night. You need to play your system and not Florida's. Play the system that has gotten you to where you're at in the Eastern Conference Final. The quality over the quantity of shots. Yeah, quantity is fine, but you need to put pucks on net that's going to make Bobrovsky work and not just give him the easy saves. And then depth and special teams. Those are big components that help got the Hurricanes where they're at. So if they're able to add that along with the quality shots, along with playing your system where it's all 4 lines going, then I think this is going to be a lot closer game. And I think this is where Carolina evens the series up and hopefully takes this one back to South Florida 1-1 and not down 2-0. So Thursday night should be very interesting. I know this team's going to make a lot of adjustments. They always do, like I said on social media and like I said on yesterday's show. The Hurricanes have gotten punched in the mouth this season, but they've found a way to get back up, make the adjustments, and win those next games. And so far in these playoffs, they're 2-0 after losing a game, and they've outscored their opponents 9-2. Those are some big stats to think about for the Hurricanes in Game 2 on Thursday night against the Panthers. Well, guys, that will do a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NHL Games. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneSureZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where I do have link trees in both of my bios, where you can find all of my written content about the Hurricanes at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcast, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, Locked On Hurricanes is on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Thursday, and hopefully we'll have a lot of fun on Thursday night as the Carolina Hurricanes play Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Final. Until next time, as always, let's go Canes.